Claire Whitman thought she had everything figured out: a fast-track career, a corner office waiting, and a life mapped out in corporate milestones. But when turbulence on a delayed flight forces her to lean on a stranger's shoulder, she wakes up to a handwritten note that will change everything. Marcus Hale, a single father and airport ground crew technician, sees something in Claire that she's forgotten exists: the woman behind the business suit who's been running from the very thing her heart needs most. What Claire doesn't know is that choosing love over ambition will test everything she believes about success, family, and whether a white hotel executive and a black single dad can build something beautiful in a world determined to keep them apart. When her mother's disapproval collides with his ex's demands, and corporate pressure threatens to tear them from the small life they're trying to build, Claire will have to decide: is love worth risking everything she's worked for? If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because this story of finding home in the most unexpected place is about to take you on an emotional journey you won't forget. The plane shuddered through another pocket of rough air, and Claire Whitman gripped her tablet tighter. The cabin lights had been dimmed for the evening flight, but she squinted at the glowing screen anyway. Hotel launch notes, budget projections, guest satisfaction surveys, all the things that would matter tomorrow morning when she landed. The seatbelt sign dinged on with a harsh chime. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." Claire glanced at the man beside her. He was calm, reading something on his phone with steady hands. Dark skin, kind eyes, maybe early 30s. He wore a simple navy shirt and jeans, nothing fancy. When the plane lurched again, harder this time, her tablet slipped from her lap. Without a word, he caught it before it hit the floor. "Thank you," she whispered. He handed it back with a gentle smile. "No problem." The turbulence kept coming, wave after wave of bumps that made the overhead bins creak. Claire tried to focus on her notes, but her eyes felt heavy. The long day was catching up to her. Budget meetings, site visits, conference calls that ran late. She leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes for just a moment. When she opened them again, the plane was still shaking. But something was different. Her cheek was warm, soft fabric against her skin, the smell of clean laundry and something faintly like vanilla. She was leaning against the man's shoulder. Claire jerked upright, her face burning hot. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." "Hey, it's okay." His voice was low and gentle. "Really, you were safe." The plane gave one last shudder, then smoothed out. The seatbelt sign clicked off. "We'll be landing in about 15 minutes, the captain announced. "Thank you for your patience." Claire fumbled with her blanket, trying to fold it properly. Her hands were shaking a little. She never fell asleep on strangers. She never lost control like that. "Here." The man reached over and helped her fold the thin airline blanket. As he did, something crinkled inside the fabric. A piece of paper fell into her lap. Claire unfolded it carefully. In neat handwriting, someone had written, "No worries, you were safe here. M. Zoe drew this plane." Below the words was a child's drawing in purple crayon. A smiling airplane with wings that looked more like arms, reaching out to hug the clouds. Claire stared at the note, something warm spreading in her chest. "You wrote this while I was asleep?" "My daughter drew the plane yesterday. I keep a few of her pictures in my phone case." He pointed to a clear phone case that held several small drawings. "Figured you might like to wake up to something that made someone smile." "M?" she asked. Marcus Hale." "Claire Whitman." She looked at the drawing again. "How old is Zoe?" "6. She loves planes. Wants to be a pilot when she grows up." Marcus's whole face softened when he talked about his daughter. "She'd be excited to know her drawing helped someone have sweet dreams." The plane banked left, beginning its descent. Claire could see city lights through the small window. Home? Except her apartment didn't really feel like home. It felt like a place where she kept her clothes and charged her phone between business trips. "Do you fly a lot?" Marcus asked. "Too much." Claire folded the note carefully and slipped it into her purse. "You?" "First time in 2 years. Had to go to a training conference in Denver. Usually I work closer to home." "What do you do?" "Ground crew at the airport. Make sure the planes are safe before they take off." Marcus smiled. "Zoe thinks that makes me part of the flying team." The wheels touched down with a gentle bump. Around them, passengers started reaching for their bags, but Claire didn't move yet. She wanted to say something more, but she didn't know what. Thank you seemed too small for the kindness of the note, for letting a stranger sleep on his shoulder, for making her feel safe without her even asking. "Marcus?" she said as people started standing up. "Yeah? Thank you, for the note, for," she gestured vaguely, "for being kind." "Everyone deserves to feel safe," he said simply. The line started moving toward the front of the plane. Marcus grabbed a small backpack from under the seat in front of him. Claire gathered her purse and laptop bag. They shuffled forward with everyone else, but the aisle was crowded. People pushing past each other, eager to get off and get home. In the bottleneck near the exit, Claire lost sight of Marcus. She was stuck behind a woman with too many carry-on bags and a man talking loudly on his phone about missed connections. By the time she made it off the plane, Marcus was nowhere to be seen. Claire stood in the jetway for a moment, looking around. Part of her wanted to catch up with him, to say something more. But what would she say? She didn't even know his last name. Well, she did now. Hale. Marcus Hale, who worked ground crew and had a 6-year-old daughter who drew smiling airplanes. A man in a business suit bumped into her from behind. "Excuse me, miss. Some of us have places to be." Claire moved toward baggage claim, her hand touching the note in her purse. She looked back once toward the gate, but Marcus was gone. Just another kind stranger who'd made her night a little brighter, then disappeared into the crowd. But maybe that was enough. Maybe some gifts weren't meant to last longer than a flight. Maybe they were meant to remind you that there were still good people in the world, even when you were too tired to remember it yourself. The note crinkled softly in her purse as she walked toward the baggage carousel. Zoe's purple airplane smiled up at her from the folded paper. "Safe," Marcus had written. "You were safe here." It was such a simple thing to offer someone. But Claire couldn't remember the last time anyone had given her that feeling without her having to ask for it. The baggage claim area buzzed with tired travelers and the mechanical hum of conveyor belts. Claire stood near carousel number 3, checking her phone for the 5th time. The storm had caused delays all day, and now half the flights in the region were backed up. "Attention passengers from Flight 847, a voice crackled over the intercom. "Due to weather-related ground delays, baggage delivery will be delayed approximately 30 minutes. A collective groan rose from the crowd around the motionless carousel. Claire rubbed her temples. 30 more minutes in this fluorescent-lit cave. She had an early meeting tomorrow, and her apartment was still 20 minutes away, if she was lucky. "Looks like we're all in the same boat," a familiar voice said beside her. Claire turned and saw Marcus standing near the same carousel with his hands in his pockets. He looked just as tired as she felt, but he was smiling. "Small world," she said, surprised by how happy she was to see him again. "Small airport," he corrected, "though this delay isn't exactly small." They fell into an easy silence, watching other passengers check their phones and sigh dramatically. A baby was crying somewhere behind them. A teenager complained loudly about missing her ride home. Marcus disappeared for a moment and came back with 2 bottles of water from a vending machine. He handed one to Claire along with another small piece of paper taped to the side. What's this? Claire laughed, peeling off the tape. For when the next wave hits. The note read in Marcus's neat handwriting. Claire looked at him, eyebrows raised. The next wave? Of thirst, fatigue, airport frustration. Marcus twisted open his own water bottle. I figured we might be here a while. You carry around a lot of paper and tape? Occupational hazard. We use tape and labels for everything in ground crew. Safety checks, maintenance notes. He shrugged. Plus, Zoe got me in the habit of leaving little notes. She puts them in my lunch sometimes. Draws pictures on my work gloves. Claire took a sip of water and felt some of her stress ease. That's sweet. She's with her mom this weekend, so I'm not in a huge rush to get home. Just me and leftover pizza waiting in an empty apartment. That sounds better than my emergency hotel bar and emails I should have answered yesterday. You live in a hotel? I'm managing the opening of a new boutique property downtown. They put me up in one of the suites while we get everything running. Claire twisted the cap back on her water. It's nice, but it doesn't feel like home. Home's important, Marcus said. Especially when you have kids. Zoe needs to know where her stuff is, where her dad will be when she gets off the school bus. The carousel suddenly lurched to life with a grinding mechanical sound. A few pieces of luggage appeared, but not many. Claire watched a bright red suitcase go around and around while its owner stood hopefully nearby. Is that yours? Marcus pointed to a black rolling bag that had just appeared. I think so. Claire moved closer to check the tag. As she did, her silk scarf caught on something. She looked down and saw a small purple backpack tag tangled in the fabric. Zoe's, Marcus said, gently untangling the scarf. She used this bag last month when she visited her grandmother. I wondered where this tag went. The tag was shaped like an airplane, just like the drawing in Claire's purse. Purple with silver wings and a smiling face drawn in black marker. She really loves planes, Claire observed. Ever since she was 3 and I took her to the observation deck at the airport. We'd watch them take off and land for hours. She'd wave at every single one. Marcus clipped the tag to his own bag. Now she says she wants to fly them instead of just watch them. What do you tell her about that? That dreams are important, that she's smart enough to do anything she sets her mind to. Marcus's voice was firm. I also tell her that it takes a lot of school and a lot of practice, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Claire studied his face. There was pride there, but also something else. Determination. The kind that came from wanting better for your child than what you'd had yourself. You're a good dad, she said quietly. I try. Marcus looked away, suddenly shy. Some days are easier than others. The carousel kept turning, bringing more bags, but still not Claire's. She watched the other passengers grab their luggage and head toward the exit, envying their freedom. Do you travel for work a lot? Marcus asked. More than I'd like. But this job is important. If the hotel opening goes well, it could mean a promotion. Maybe I could finally stop living out of suitcases. What would you do if you stayed in one place? Claire considered the question. I don't know. I've been moving around for so long, I'm not sure what staying still would look like. It's nice, Marcus said, waking up in the same bed every day, knowing which coffee shop makes your favorite drink, having a neighbor who waves when you check the mail. Sounds peaceful? It is. Sometimes I think Zoe and I have built something pretty good together. Small, but good. The carousel gave a mechanical hiccup and stopped again. This time, an airport employee in an orange vest walked over with a clipboard. Folks, we're having some technical difficulties with the belt system. We're going to manually bring out the remaining bags. Should be about 15 more minutes. More groans from the waiting passengers. Claire sank down onto one of the metal benches nearby. Marcus sat beside her, leaving a respectful distance, but close enough that they could talk without shouting over the airport noise. Can I ask you something? Claire said. Sure. The note on the plane. Do you always do things like that for strangers? Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking. My mom used to say that kindness doesn't cost anything, but it's worth everything. She died when Zoe was 2, and I think about that a lot now, about what kind of world I want my daughter to grow up in. I'm sorry about your mom. Thank you. She would have loved Zoe so much. Marcus smiled sadly. She also would have loved that you appreciated the note. Mom always said the best gifts are the ones that make people feel seen. I did feel seen, Claire admitted. I don't sleep well on planes usually, or anywhere, really. But for some reason, I felt safe enough to actually rest. Good, that was the point. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the orange-vested employee wheel out cart after cart of luggage. Claire found herself stealing glances at Marcus, the way he sat with his shoulders relaxed but his hands ready, like he was used to being helpful. The way he spoke about his daughter with such obvious love. The way he'd given her exactly what she needed without her having to ask for it. There, Marcus pointed. Black bag with the silver handle? That's it. Claire stood up as the employee placed her suitcase near the carousel. They both grabbed their bags and started walking toward the exit. Outside the big glass windows, Claire could see rain starting to fall. The kind of steady drizzle that made everything look gray and cold. Well, Marcus said as they reached the sliding doors. I guess this is where we part ways. Claire hesitated. Part of her wanted to ask for his number, to suggest coffee sometime, but another part of her wasn't sure what she'd do with it. Her life was complicated enough. She was always traveling, always working. What would she offer someone like Marcus, who needed stability for his daughter? Thank you, she said instead. For the water, for the notes, for making a terrible travel day a little better. You're welcome. Marcus shifted his bag to his other hand. Take care, Claire Whitman. You too, Marcus Hale. He walked toward the bus stop outside, and Claire pulled out her phone to call a rideshare. The app showed surge pricing in red letters, twice the normal rate because of the weather and all the delayed flights. She was about to accept the inflated fare when someone tapped her shoulder. Excuse me, a woman's voice said. Are you heading downtown? Claire turned to see a woman about her age with short curly hair and a friendly smile. She was wearing scrubs under her jacket. I'm Tessa. I drive for rideshare part-time, and I'm heading home anyway. If you're going downtown, I can give you a lift for half what the app's charging. Storm surge pricing is ridiculous. Claire glanced toward the bus stop, where she could just see Marcus waiting in the rain. Is there room for one more passenger? That man over there is going the same direction? Tessa followed her gaze. Sure, more the merrier on a night like this. Claire walked quickly to the bus stop, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. Marcus looked up, surprised, as she approached. There's a woman offering shared rides downtown for half the surge price, she said, slightly out of breath. Want to split it? Marcus looked past her at Tessa, who waved from under the airport overhang. You sure? I can wait for the bus. It's pouring. Come on. They walked back together, their shoulders bumping slightly as they tried to stay under Claire's small umbrella. Marcus, Tessa, Marcus. Claire introduced them. Nice to meet you both. My car's in the short-term lot. Fair warning, it's not fancy, but it's warm and dry. Tessa's car turned out to be a reliable-looking Honda with cloth seats and air fresheners hanging from the rear-view mirror. Claire slid into the back while Marcus took the passenger seat. So? Tessa said as she pulled out of the parking garage. What brings you two out on such a lovely evening? Delayed flight from Denver, Claire said. Same, Marcus added, though we didn't know each other before tonight. Airport friendships. Tessa nodded knowingly. I see it all the time. Nothing bonds people like shared travel misery. Claire found herself relaxing into the back seat as they drove through the city. The conversation between the three of them was easy, natural. Tessa talked about her job as a nurse and how she drove for extra income. Marcus mentioned Zoe's airplane obsession. Claire shared a funny story about a hotel guest who'd tried to smuggle his emotional support peacock into the lobby. A peacock? Marcus turned around to look at her, laughing. A peacock, feathers and everything? He insisted it was for his anxiety. What did you do? Found him a pet-friendly hotel across town that specializes in unusual service animals. Turns out there's a whole network of places that cater to people with exotic pets. See? Tessa said, navigating around a slower car. You learn something new every day. As they drove through the downtown area, Claire found herself paying attention to details she usually missed. A small cafe with warm yellow lights in the window, a bookstore that stayed open late, a park with old-fashioned street lamps that cast gentle circles of light on the wet sidewalks. It's pretty down here, she said. You don't usually get to see it from the ground level? Marcus asked. I'm usually in cabs rushing between meetings or looking down from hotel room windows. Claire watched a couple walk by sharing an umbrella. It looks different when you slow down. Everything looks different when you slow down, Tessa agreed. That's why I like driving. You get to see the city breathe. They pulled up in front of a modest apartment building with a green awning. The kind of place that looked lived in and comfortable, not fancy, but well-maintained. This is me, Marcus said. Thanks for the ride, Tessa, and thanks for thinking of me, Claire. He started to get out, then hesitated. Actually, let me get off a few blocks down. I could use the walk anyway. In this rain? Claire protested. I like the rain. Helps me think. Marcus smiled at her through the space between the seats. Besides, I've got a good umbrella. If you're sure, Tessa said. They drove 3 more blocks before Marcus asked Tessa to pull over near a small grocery store. As he got out, Claire found herself wanting to say something more. Something that would keep this connection from just disappearing into the night. But what came out was, it was really nice meeting you, Marcus. You too, Claire. Safe travels. He closed the car door gently and waved as Tessa pulled back into traffic. Claire watched through the rear window as he walked away, his figure growing smaller under the streetlights until he disappeared around a corner. Seems like a nice guy, Tessa observed. Yeah, he really is. Claire settled back into her seat and watched the city roll by outside her window. In a few minutes, she'd be back at the hotel. Back to her work emails and her scheduled calls and her carefully planned tomorrow. But right now, she was just a person who'd met another person on a plane, who'd shared water and conversation and a ride through the rain with strangers who'd been kind to her. It was such a simple thing, but somehow it felt like more than she'd had in a long time. When Tessa dropped her off at the hotel entrance, Claire tipped her well and thanked her for the kindness. Take care, Tessa said. And hey, if you ever need another ride, I'm usually around the airport evenings and weekends. Claire walked through the marble lobby of her temporary home, past the polished surfaces and carefully arranged flowers. Everything was beautiful and perfect and exactly as it should be. But as she rode the elevator up to her suite, she found herself thinking about Marcus's words, about waking up in the same bed every day, about neighbors who waved when you checked the mail, about feeling safe enough to rest. In her room, Claire set her purse on the glass coffee table and pulled out the note Marcus had written on the plane. She unfolded it carefully and looked at Zoe's drawing again. The smiling airplane with arms for wings, reaching out to embrace the sky. She took a photo of it with her phone, then folded the note back up and put it in her jewelry box next to her grandmother's earrings and her college ring. Safekeeping for something that had made her smile. Outside her window, the rain kept falling on the city below. Somewhere out there, Marcus was home in his apartment, maybe reading a bedtime story over video chat with Zoe. Maybe looking at his own collection of crayon drawings stuck to his refrigerator. Claire made herself a cup of tea and sat in the chair by the window, watching the lights of the city blur through the raindrops on the glass. For once, she didn't open her laptop, didn't check her emails, didn't review tomorrow's schedule. Instead, she just sat quietly and thought about kindness, about the way small gestures could make someone feel seen, about how good it felt to be cared for by someone who asked for nothing in return. It had been a long time since she'd felt that. A long time since she'd slowed down enough to notice what was right in front of her. Maybe it was time to start paying attention. The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching Claire's mood as she stood in the hotel lobby with Lila Romero, her assistant manager. They were both staring at a luggage cart that had decided to jam itself sideways between two marble pillars. "How did this even happen?" Claire asked, pulling on the handle with no success. "Mrs. Patterson from room 412 was trying to move it herself," Lila explained, pushing from the other side. "She said the wheels were making a terrible noise, so she gave it a good shove to fix it." "Of course she did." Claire wiped her hands on her skirt and stepped back. "And now it's completely stuck." Mrs. Patterson, a woman in her 70s with perfectly styled silver hair, stood nearby wringing her hands. "I'm so sorry, dear. I just thought if I pushed it harder, it would roll better." "It's okay, Mrs. Patterson," Claire said, forcing a smile. "We'll figure it out." But 20 minutes later, they still hadn't figured it out. The cart was wedged so tightly between the pillars that it wouldn't budge in either direction. Claire had tried everything she could think of, and so had Lila. Even the maintenance man they'd called was stumped. "I could try to take it apart," he suggested, scratching his head. "That seems extreme for a luggage cart," Claire said. "Morning, Claire." She turned at the familiar voice and felt her heart do a small skip. Marcus stood near the lobby entrance, dressed in his ground crew uniform, dark blue pants and a matching shirt with the airport logo. He looked like he was on his way to work, but he was smiling at her with that same gentle expression from the night before. "Marcus!" Claire couldn't hide her surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I was walking by on my way to catch the bus, and I saw you through the window looking frustrated." He gestured toward the stuck cart. "Thought maybe I could help." Claire felt her cheeks warm. "You don't have to do that. I'm sure you need to get to work." "I've got a few minutes." Marcus walked over to examine the cart. He ran his hands along the frame, checking where it was caught. "This happens more than you'd think. Different buildings, same problem." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small multi-tool. Within seconds, he'd located the issue, a bent wheel that was catching on the marble base of the pillar. "Just needs a little adjustment," he said, working the tool carefully. "There." The cart rolled free so easily that Lila stumbled backward a little. "How did you do that?" she asked, clearly impressed. "Practice," Marcus said simply. "We deal with stuck equipment all the time at the airport. Usually it's just one small thing that needs to be fixed." "Thank you so much, young man," Mrs. Patterson said, beaming at him. "You're very clever." Marcus smiled at her. "No problem, ma'am. Glad I could help." He started to put his tool away, but Claire stopped him. "Wait, what was wrong with it exactly?" Marcus showed her the bent wheel mechanism. "This little piece got twisted when the cart was forced. It was catching on the edge of the marble. Just needed to be straightened out." He handed her a tiny bolt that had come loose. "Keep this in case it sticks again." Claire took the small piece of metal, her fingers brushing against his for just a moment. "Thank you. Really." We could have been dealing with this all morning. Happy to help. Marcus glanced at his watch. I should probably head to work, though. Of course. Claire felt oddly disappointed. Thanks again. She watched him walk toward the exit, then looked down at the bolt in her palm. Such a small thing, but it had made all the difference. Just like the note on the plane, just like the water at the airport. Who is that? Lila asked, moving the now functional cart out of the way. Someone I met on the flight last night. He's cute and handy. I like him already. Claire slipped the bolt into her pocket. It's not like that, Lila. Sure it isn't. Lila grinned. That's why you're smiling like that. Claire's phone rang before she could respond. The caller ID showed her mother's name. I should take this, she said, stepping away from the lobby bustle. Hi, Mom. Claire, darling, how was your flight? Fine. A little bumpy, but fine. Claire walked toward a quieter corner of the lobby. How are you? Wonderful. I just got off the phone with Patricia Morrison. You remember her? She works in corporate development at Meridian Hotels? Claire did remember Patricia. She was the kind of woman who wore power suits and spoke in corporate buzzwords. What did she want? She wanted to talk about you, actually. Apparently, there's a position opening up in their executive development program. It would mean more travel, but the advancement opportunities are incredible. Mom, I just started this project here. I know, darling, but you have to think about the big picture. This boutique hotel opening is lovely, but it's small scale. Patricia says this new position would put you on track for regional management within 2 years. Claire rubbed her temple. She could feel a headache starting. Can we talk about this later? I'm in the middle of a workday. Of course, but Claire? Don't let yourself get too comfortable in one place. Comfort can be the enemy of growth. After her mother hung up, Claire stood in the lobby for a moment, watching the morning bustle around her. Guests checking out. Staff preparing for the lunch service. Leela efficiently directing a new housekeeping employee. It was starting to feel like home in a way that none of her other assignments had. But maybe that was exactly what her mother was warning her about. Claire's phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, she hoped it might be Marcus, though she realized she didn't have his number. Instead, it was her boss. Conference call moved to 2 p.m. Need updated projections before then. She sighed and headed toward her office. But as she walked, her hand found the small bolt in her pocket. She rolled it between her fingers, remembering the way Marcus had fixed the problem so simply. No drama. No complicated solutions. Just seeing what was really wrong and addressing it directly. Maybe some problems were simpler than they seemed. Maybe some solutions didn't require turning your whole life upside down. The thought stayed with her through the morning meetings and the conference calls. Through the lunch service coordination and the guest complaint about the air conditioning in room 318. By late afternoon, Claire found herself walking to the lobby windows that faced the street. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, or anyone in particular. But when she saw a familiar figure in an airport uniform walking past with a small backpack, her pulse quickened. Before she could talk herself out of it, Claire walked to her office computer and opened a new email. 2. General Maintenance, Metropolitan Airport Subject. Thank you. Hello. This morning, one of your ground crew employees helped solve a problem at the Meridian Downtown Hotel. I wanted to make sure his supervisor knows what excellent service he provided. The employee's name was Marcus. Last name starts with H, I believe. He was professional, courteous, and solved our problem quickly and efficiently. Thank you for employing people who go above and beyond, even when they're off duty. Best regards, Claire Whitman, Assistant Manager, Meridian Downtown Hotel. Claire read the email 3 times before hitting send. It felt like a small thing, but she hoped it might reach him somehow. Hoped he'd know that his kindness hadn't gone unnoticed. What she didn't expect was a reply 2 hours later. "Hi, Claire. Thanks for the email. It found its way to me through a friend in the main office who recognized the description. That was really nice of you to send. I'm glad the card is working properly now. If it gives you trouble again, that little bolt should fix it, but let me know if you need help. Hope your day got better after the morning drama." Marcus? Claire stared at the email for a long moment. He'd signed it just Marcus, but at the bottom was his full name and an official airport email address. Marcus J. Hale, Ground Operations Technician. She hit reply before she could overthink it. "Marcus, the card is working perfectly. Thank you again for stopping to help, especially when you were on your way to work. I was wondering, would you like to get coffee sometime? Nothing fancy, just a thank you for being so kind. Maybe somewhere near the park? I promise not to fall asleep on you again. Claire P.S. How is Zoe? Does she still want to be a pilot?" Claire sent the email and immediately regretted it. Was coffee too forward? Was she overstepping? She barely knew this man. For all she knew, he was married, or dating someone, or just not interested in having coffee with a woman he'd met on a plane. Her phone pinged with a new email notification 15 minutes later. "Claire, coffee sounds nice. There's a place called Maya's near Riverside Park that has good coffee and even better pancakes. No obligations, just thanks and company, like you said. How about Saturday morning around 10? And yes, Zoe still wants to be a pilot. Yesterday, she made me promise to take her to the Aviation Museum next weekend. She's convinced she needs to study the old planes to understand how the new ones work. Marcus P.S. Falling asleep is allowed. I make a decent armrest in emergencies." Claire found herself smiling at her computer screen. The postscript made her laugh out loud, which earned her a curious look from Lila, who was passing by her office door. "Good news?" Lila asked. "Maybe," Claire said, closing her email. "We'll see." Saturday morning arrived clear and bright, the kind of day that made the previous evening's rain seem like a distant memory. Claire changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a soft blue sweater. Casual, but nice. Friendly, but not trying too hard. Maya's Cafe turned out to be exactly the kind of place Claire would have chosen herself. Small and warm, with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. The smell of coffee and bacon filled the air, and there was a steady hum of conversation from the weekend breakfast crowd. Marcus was already there when she arrived, sitting at a small table near the window. He stood up when he saw her, that same gentle smile on his face. "You found it okay," he said. "GPS is a wonderful thing." Claire sat down across from him. "This place is cute. Zoe and I come here sometimes on Saturday mornings, when it's my weekend with her. She likes the chocolate chip pancakes." A server appeared with coffee and menus. Claire ordered regular coffee. Marcus asked for decaf. "Decaf?" Claire raised an eyebrow. "I work early shifts. If I drink too much caffeine after noon, I'm up all night." Marcus smiled sheepishly. "I'm exciting like that." "Early shifts sound rough. 5:30 a.m. most days, but I'm done by 2 in the afternoon, which means I can pick up Zoe from school. It works out." They ordered food, pancakes for Marcus, a veggie omelet for Claire, and fell into easy conversation. Marcus asked about the hotel opening, and Claire found herself telling him about the challenges of coordinating vendors and training staff and dealing with difficult guests who expected perfection from day one. "Like Mrs. Patterson and her luggage cart war," she said. "How is Mrs. Patterson? Did she recover from the trauma of the jammed cart?" "She sent me a fruit basket yesterday. Apparently she was so impressed with the excellent young maintenance man that she wanted to make sure we kept you around." Marcus laughed. "I'm not actually employed by your hotel, but I'm glad she was happy." "She asked if you were single." "Oh no. Don't worry, I told her I'd ask." Claire grinned at him over her coffee cup. "So, Marcus J. Hale, Are you single? Very single. Have been for about 2 years now. Marcus grew more serious. Zoe's mom and it didn't work out, but we're good co-parents. We make sure Zoe feels loved and secure. That must be hard sometimes. It can be, but it's worth it for her. Marcus looked out the window for a moment. I want her to see that people can disagree and still treat each other with respect. That she doesn't have to choose sides or carry anyone else's anger. Claire felt something warm spread through her chest. You really are a good dad. I try. What about you? Kids? No. I've been so focused on work, I haven't really thought about it seriously. Claire picked at her omelet. My mom thinks I should be concentrating on my career right now anyway. Says there will be time for personal stuff later. What do you think? I don't know. Sometimes I look around and realize I've been so busy building a resume that I forgot to build a life. Marcus nodded slowly. I used to think work was everything too. Then Zoe came along and changed all my priorities. Made me realize that the most important things can't be scheduled or managed or put on a timeline. They finished breakfast and walked outside into the sunshine. The park was just across the street, filled with families and joggers and people walking dogs. Want to take a walk? Marcus asked. Sure. They strolled along the paved path that wound through the park. Claire found herself noticing things she normally would have missed. The way the light filtered through the trees, the sound of children playing on the swings, the older couple sitting on a bench sharing a newspaper. There's something I should probably mention, Marcus said as they reached a small hill that overlooked the city. About Zoe. Claire felt a flutter of nervousness. What about her? She doesn't meet anyone I'm dating. Not until I'm sure it's serious and going somewhere. That makes sense. I just wanted you to know so you don't think I'm trying to hide anything. It's just, she's been through enough changes in her short life. I don't want her getting attached to people who might not stick around. Claire stopped walking and turned to face him. I respect that. I wouldn't want to do anything that might hurt her. I didn't think you would, but I thought you should know where I stand on it. They reached a small overlook area with benches and a view of the city skyline. In the distance, Claire could see planes taking off and landing at the airport. Zoe would love this view, she said. She would. She can identify most commercial aircraft just by looking at them. Marcus pointed to a plane that was just lifting off. That's a 737, according to my daughter, the future pilot. Claire watched the plane climb higher into the blue sky. What made her fall in love with flying? Honestly, the first time I brought her here, she said the planes looked like they were dancing with the clouds. She wanted to dance with them too. That's beautiful. She's beautiful, inside and out. Marcus sat down on one of the benches. Sometimes I look at her and can't believe she's mine, that I get to be the one who helps her figure out the world. Claire sat beside him, leaving a comfortable space between them. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the planes and the city, and the people enjoying the sunny Saturday morning. Claire felt more relaxed than she had in months. There was something about Marcus's presence that made her want to slow down and pay attention to the moment she was in. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Sure. Yesterday, when you helped with the luggage cart, why did you stop? You could have just walked by. Marcus considered the question. I guess because you looked like you needed help, and I had something to offer. That simple? That simple. He turned to look at her. Sometimes I think we make things more complicated than they need to be. If you can help someone, and it doesn't hurt you to do it, why wouldn't you? Claire thought about her mother's advice about career advancement. about the corporate position that would mean more travel and less time for things like Saturday morning coffee in the park. What if helping someone means giving up something you want? She asked. I guess it depends on what you really want versus what you think you're supposed to want. A plane roared overhead, and they both looked up to watch it pass. Claire found herself wondering if Zoe was somewhere else in the city at that moment, maybe at a window somewhere, waving at that same plane. She really would love this, she said. Maybe someday you'll get to meet her, Marcus said quietly. If we decide to keep having coffee. I'd like that, Claire said. Both parts, the coffee and meeting Zoe. Good. Marcus smiled at her. Because I was hoping you'd say that. When they walked back toward their cars an hour later, Claire felt lighter than she had in years. Not because anything dramatic had happened, but because something simple had. She'd spent a morning with someone who made her feel comfortable in her own skin, who listened when she talked and shared pieces of himself without making it complicated. Thank you for this, she said as they reached her car. Thank you for the email yesterday, and for agreeing to coffee with a stranger from a plane. You're not a stranger anymore. No, Marcus said. I guess I'm not. Claire drove home with the windows down, letting the warm air blow through her hair. She thought about the way Marcus talked about his daughter, the pride and love so clear in his voice. About the way he'd helped Mrs. Patterson without expecting anything in return. About how he'd made space for her to rest on a turbulent flight without making her feel foolish for needing it. Her phone buzzed with a text as she pulled into the hotel parking garage. For a moment, she hoped it was Marcus. Instead, it was her mother. Spoke with Patricia again. The Meridian position has a hard deadline next Friday. We should discuss this soon. Claire stared at the message for a moment, then put her phone away without responding. Not because she was avoiding the conversation, but because she wanted to think about it more carefully. Some decisions, she was learning, deserved more than a quick response. They deserved the kind of thoughtful consideration that came from slowing down long enough to figure out what you really wanted. And for the first time in years, Claire was beginning to think she might know what that was. Monday morning arrived with a text from Marcus that made Claire smile before she'd even had her coffee. After-school program called. There might be an opening for Zoe on the wait list. Fingers crossed. Claire found herself thinking about that text as she walked through the hotel lobby, noting how different everything looked in the morning light. Lila was already at the front desk, efficiently checking in a family with 3 young children who were clearly excited about their city adventure. Good morning, boss, Lila called out. How was your weekend? Good, really good, actually. Claire stopped at the desk. How are the Patterson situation and room 318's air conditioning? Mrs. Patterson is now convinced our maintenance staff walks on water, and room 318's AC is working perfectly. Sometimes the simplest solutions really are the best ones. Claire touched the small bolt in her jacket pocket, the one Marcus had given her. She'd started carrying it around like a little reminder that most problems weren't as complicated as they seemed. Her phone rang just as she was about to head to her office. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. Hi, she answered, trying to sound casual. Hey, are you busy? I know it's early. Not too busy. What's up? I wanted to ask you something, but I want to be completely upfront about it. Marcus's voice sounded slightly nervous. There's a neighborhood street fair this Saturday. Food trucks, local bands, that kind of thing. Zoe will be there with her mom for part of the afternoon. Claire felt her heart speed up a little. Okay? I was thinking of going, and I thought maybe you'd like to come along. But I want to be clear about the boundaries. If we run into Zoe, you'd just be a friend. I wouldn't introduce you as someone I'm dating or anything like that. Not yet. I understand completely. You're sure? I know it's awkward, keeping things casual in public. Claire thought about it for a moment. Marcus, you're protecting your daughter. That's not awkward. That's responsible. Okay, good. So you want to come? It's nothing fancy. Just walking around, maybe getting some terrible fair food that's somehow delicious anyway. That sounds perfect. What time? 2 o'clock. We could meet at the main entrance. After they hung up, Claire realized she was grinning at her phone. Lila appeared beside her with an armload of reservation confirmations. Let me guess, Lila said. Ground crew guy? His name is Marcus, and yes. I knew it. You've been different since Saturday morning. Lighter. Different how? You're not checking your phone every 5 minutes for work emails. You actually sat down and ate lunch yesterday instead of standing at your desk. And right now, you're smiling like someone who's looking forward to something instead of dreading it. Claire considered this. Is that really how I usually look? Like I'm dreading things? Not dreading. More like bracing yourself. Like you're waiting for the next problem to solve. Lila set the reservations on the desk. But lately, you seem more relaxed. It's nice. The morning passed quickly with the usual hotel business, a delivery mix-up that got sorted out with a few phone calls, a guest who couldn't figure out how to work the smart TV in their room, a minor crisis when the coffee machine in the breakfast area decided to leak all over the marble floor. Claire found herself handling each issue with more patience than usual. When the coffee machine repair took longer than expected, she made sure the guests knew about the excellent coffee shop just 2 blocks away, instead of stressing about the inconvenience to the hotel's reputation. Problem solved, she told herself as she watched the repair technician pack up his tools. Around 11, her phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Got the call. Zoe made it off the wait list. Starts next Monday. Claire immediately called him. That's wonderful news, she said when he picked up. I'm so relieved. This program has art classes and homework help, and they pick kids up from school. It means I won't have to worry about her being alone after school when it's my week with her. You must feel like a weight's been lifted. Exactly. I applied on my own, did all the paperwork myself, and it worked out. Marcus's voice carried a note of pride. Zoe's going to be so excited. You should celebrate. This is a big deal. We will. She wants to make a congratulations card for herself, which is very Zoe. Claire laughed. She sounds amazing. She is. I can't wait for you to meet her someday, when the time is right. After work, Claire found herself walking through her neighborhood instead of ordering takeout and eating in front of her laptop. She noticed things she'd never paid attention to before. A bookstore with a cat sleeping in the window. A small restaurant with tables outside where couples were sharing dessert. A community garden where someone had painted encouraging messages on small wooden signs. Bloom where you're planted, one sign read. Claire stopped walking and stared at it. How long had it been since she'd felt planted anywhere? She'd been moving from hotel to hotel, city to city, for so long that she'd forgotten what it felt like to put down roots. Her phone rang. Her mother's name appeared on the screen. Hi, Mom. Claire, darling, I've been waiting to hear from you about that position with Patricia Morrison. The deadline is Friday, and these opportunities don't come along often. Claire sat down on a bench near the community garden. I've been thinking about it. What's to think about? It's everything you've been working toward. Regional management track, substantial salary increase, excellent benefits. It would also mean traveling even more than I do now, being away from home most of the time. Home? Evelyn's voice sharpened slightly. Sweetheart, you live in a hotel suite. That's temporary housing, not a home. Maybe that's the problem. There was a pause. I don't understand. Claire looked around at the garden, at the evening light filtering through the trees, at the people walking by with their dogs and their children and their normal, rooted lives. I'm starting to think I want something different, Mom. Something more stable. Stability doesn't build careers, Claire. Movement does. Progress does. What if I don't want the kind of career that requires me to never stay anywhere long enough to learn the names of my neighbors? This is about a man, isn't it? Evelyn's tone became cooler. I can hear it in your voice. Claire thought about Marcus, about the way he'd described waking up in the same bed every day, knowing which coffee shop made his favorite drink, about having neighbors who waved when he checked the mail. Maybe it's about a lot of things, she said finally. Claire, I'm going to give you some advice, and I want you to really listen. Men come and go. Careers are what you can count on. Financial independence, professional respect, the ability to take care of yourself. Those things matter more than romance. Did you ever think that maybe we can have both? I think that when you're 35 and struggling to advance in your field because you chose comfort over ambition, you'll remember this conversation differently. After her mother hung up, Claire sat on the bench for a long time, watching the neighborhood come alive with evening activity. Families walking home from dinner, teenagers riding bikes, couples holding hands as they strolled through the park. She thought about her mother's marriage to her father, how they'd stayed together for 30 years, but had always seemed more like business partners than lovers. How her mother had built an impressive career, but had often seemed lonely, even when she was surrounded by colleagues and professional success. Was that really what Claire wanted? To be successful, but isolated? To have an impressive title, but no one to share it with? Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Zoe drew you another plane. Well, she drew a plane for the nice lady from Daddy's Stories. Thought you might like to know you've made it into the Zoe mythology? Claire found herself smiling despite the heavy conversation with her mother. She typed back, I'm honored to be part of the mythology. Can't wait to see the artwork. Maybe Saturday at the fair, if we're lucky, Marcus replied. Claire walked home thinking about luck, about choices, about the difference between what other people expected from your life and what actually made you happy. Saturday arrived warm and sunny, perfect weather for a street fair. Claire changed clothes twice before settling on a sundress and comfortable sandals. She wanted to look nice but not overdressed for walking around outside all afternoon. The fair was spread across 4 blocks of downtown streets that had been closed to traffic. Food trucks lined one side, selling everything from gourmet grilled cheese to Korean tacos to fresh squeezed lemonade. A small stage at one end featured local musicians, and booths selling handmade jewelry and art were scattered throughout. Claire found Marcus near the main entrance, wearing jeans and a gray t-shirt that made his eyes look darker. He was scanning the crowd, and his face lit up when he saw her. Perfect timing, he said, giving her a quick hug hello. The ring toss booth just opened, and I have it on good authority that they have the best prizes. Good authority. Zoe, she's been coming to this fair since she was 3, and she's developed very strong opinions about which games are worth playing. They bought tickets and wandered through the fair, trying different foods and watching the local band on stage. Marcus pointed out details Claire would have missed. The way the face painter always drew hearts on children's cheeks, how the balloon artist could make anything if you gave him enough time, where to find the best funnel cake. You really know this place, Claire observed as they shared a basket of sweet potato fries. This is Zoe's neighborhood too. Her mom lives about 6 blocks from here, so I spend a lot of weekends in this area. They were standing near the ring toss booth when Claire heard a small voice say, Daddy! Claire turned and saw a little girl with curly hair and Marcus's same kind eyes running toward them. Behind her, a woman about Claire's age followed more slowly. Hey, baby girl, Marcus said, scooping the child up in a hug. Having fun? I got my face painted like a butterfly, see? Zoe turned her cheek to show off purple and blue wings painted across her skin. And I won a stuffed elephant at the dart game. Very impressive, Marcus said seriously. Where's your elephant now? Mama's carrying it 'cause it's really big. Zoe looked over at Claire with curious eyes. Who's your friend, Daddy? Claire felt her heart rate pick up. She hadn't expected to feel nervous meeting a 6-year-old, but something about this moment felt important. This is Claire, Marcus said. Claire, this is Zoe. Hi, Zoe. I love your butterfly face painting. Thank you. Did you know that butterflies taste with their feet? I didn't know that. That's very cool. Zoe studied Claire for a moment. Are you here by yourself? I'm here with your dad. We're friends. Oh, do you like ring toss? Daddy's terrible at it, but I'm pretty good. Marcus laughed. Thanks for that endorsement, kiddo. The woman who'd been following Zoe reached them, slightly out of breath. She was pretty, with short natural hair and tired eyes. Sorry, she said to Marcus. She saw you from across the way and took off before I could stop her. It's fine, Nina. Claire, this is Nina, Zoe's mom. Nina, this is my friend Claire. Nina's eyes flicked between Marcus and Claire, clearly assessing the situation. Nice to meet you, she said politely but coolly. You too, Claire replied. Mama, can I play ring toss with Daddy and Claire, please? Zoe looked between her parents hopefully. Nina checked her phone. We need to leave in 20 minutes for your cousin's birthday party, remember? That's enough time for one game, Marcus said diplomatically. They moved to the ring toss booth, where Zoe proved she was indeed much better at the game than her father. She won a small stuffed airplane on her third try. For you, she said, handing it to Claire. Since Daddy told me you like airplanes too. Claire felt her throat tighten with emotion. Thank you, Zoe. This is very special. It's okay if you want to keep it in your purse so it doesn't get lost. I will definitely keep it safe. Nina appeared beside them, checking her phone again. Zoe, we really need to go now. Okay, Mama. Zoe hugged Marcus tightly. See you Tuesday for dinner? Wouldn't miss it, Marcus said. I'm making spaghetti. With the good cheese? With the very best cheese. Zoe waved goodbye to Claire. It was nice meeting you. Maybe I'll see you again sometime. I hope so, Claire said, meaning it completely. As Nina and Zoe disappeared into the crowd, Marcus and Claire stood quietly for a moment. She's wonderful, Claire said finally. She is, and she liked you, which doesn't always happen with new people. How could you tell? She gave you her prize. Zoe doesn't part with stuffed animals easily, especially ones she won herself. Claire looked down at the small airplane in her hands. It was soft and blue, with a friendly face embroidered on the front. I'm honored. You should be. They walked slowly through the rest of the fair, but something had shifted. Claire found herself thinking about the way Zoe had looked at her parents, trying to read the adult dynamics she didn't fully understand. About how Nina had been polite but guarded. About how careful Marcus had been to introduce her as just a friend. It wasn't anyone's fault, but Claire realized how complicated this could become. Zoe was at the center of Marcus's world, and rightfully so. Any woman who wanted to be with him would have to understand that she'd always come second to his daughter. Claire was surprised to find that the thought didn't scare her. Instead, it made her respect Marcus even more. Penny for your thoughts, Marcus said as they reached the edge of the fair. Just thinking about how lucky Zoe is to have you as her dad. I'm the lucky one, remember? Both of you then. They walked toward their cars as the afternoon sun started to soften. Claire felt the small airplane in her hand, solid and real. Marcus? She said as they reached her car. Yeah? This was really nice, all of it? Even the part where you met my 6-year-old interrogator? Especially that part. Marcus stepped closer, and for a moment, Claire thought he might kiss her. Instead, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair away from her face. "I'm glad," he said quietly. After Marcus left, Claire sat in her car for a few minutes before driving home. She pulled out her phone and looked at the text from her mother that had arrived while she was at the fair. Patricia called again. She needs an answer by Monday morning. Please don't let this opportunity pass you by. Claire stared at the message, then looked at the little airplane Zoe had given her. She thought about the way Marcus had talked to his daughter, patient and loving and present. About how Nina had been protective but fair. About how Zoe had looked at her with curiosity instead of suspicion. She thought about waking up in the same bed every day. About neighbors who waved when you checked the mail. About building something small but steady instead of always reaching for something bigger and farther away. Claire started her car and drove home through the city streets. But instead of going straight to her hotel, she took a detour through the neighborhood near the park where she and Marcus had walked last weekend. The community garden was full of people tending to their plots in the evening light. Families were walking dogs and pushing strollers. Couples sat on porches, talking quietly as the day cooled down. Claire parked and walked slowly through the streets, looking at the houses with their front gardens and porch lights. She imagined what it would be like to live here, to be part of this community, to know which neighbors had new babies and which ones grew the best tomatoes, to have a home instead of just a place to sleep between business trips. When she finally made it back to the hotel, Claire went straight to her laptop and opened her email. She started typing a response to her mother, then deleted it, started again, then deleted that too. Instead, she opened a new email to Patricia Morrison. Dear Patricia, thank you for considering me for the regional management position. After careful thought, I've decided to respectfully decline. I'm committed to seeing the downtown hotel project through to completion, and I've found that I want to focus on building deeper expertise in one location rather than expanding geographically at this time. I appreciate the opportunity and hope we can work together in the future. Best regards, Claire Whitman. Claire read the email 3 times before hitting send. As soon as it was gone, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders that she hadn't even realized was there. Her phone rang immediately, her mother's name on the screen. Claire, what have you done? I made a choice, Mom. You made a mistake. Patricia is furious. This was a career-defining opportunity. Maybe, but it wasn't the right opportunity for me. This is about that man, isn't it? You're throwing away your future for someone you barely know. Claire looked out her hotel room window at the city lights below. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably reading Zoe a bedtime story over video chat. Somewhere out there, Nina was making sure their daughter brushed her teeth and said her prayers. Somewhere out there, people were living small, steady lives that added up to something beautiful. It's not about Marcus, Mom. Not entirely. It's about me wanting something different than what I thought I wanted. And what is that? I want to wake up in the same bed every day. I want to know my neighbors' names. I want to build something that lasts instead of always moving on to the next thing. There was silence on the other end of the line. Claire, her mother said finally, I hope you don't regret this. I hope so too, Mom. But for the first time in years, I feel like I'm moving towards something instead of just running away from staying still. After her mother hung up, Claire sat quietly in her hotel suite. She picked up the little airplane Zoe had given her and set it on her nightstand where she could see it. Then she pulled out her phone and sent a text to Marcus. Thank you for today. Zoe is amazing. I hope your spaghetti dinner Tuesday is perfect. His reply came a few minutes later. She hasn't stopped. Talking about the nice lady who likes airplanes. I think you made quite an impression. She made one on me, too, Claire typed back. Good, Marcus replied. I was hoping you'd say that. Claire went to sleep that night with Zoe's airplane on her nightstand and a feeling in her chest that might have been hope. She'd made a choice that scared her and excited her in equal measure. But for the first time in years, it felt like her choice. Not her mother's expectations, or her boss's plans, or society's definition of success. Just hers. And that felt like the beginning of something real. The week passed quietly, marked by small moments that felt significant in ways Claire was still learning to recognize. Tuesday evening, Marcus sent her a photo of a plate of spaghetti with a note written in purple crayon, propped against the salt shaker. Best daddy cook ever, love Zoe. She insisted on making you a review, his text read. 5 stars for the cheese. Claire found herself saving the photo to her phone, then staring at it longer than made sense. There was something about the casual intimacy of the moment that made her chest feel warm. Marcus hadn't just shared dinner with his daughter, he'd thought to include Claire in the small joy of it. Wednesday brought rain and a minor crisis when 3 hotel guests got food poisoning from a restaurant down the street. It wasn't the hotel's fault, but Claire spent the day coordinating with doctors and insurance companies and apologizing for things beyond her control. Rough day? Lila asked around 5, finding Claire slumped over her computer. I've had better. Claire rubbed her eyes. But it's handled now. Want to talk about it over coffee? There's that new place on 5th Street. Claire started to decline automatically. She had reports to finish, emails to answer. But then she stopped. Actually, yes, that sounds really good. They walked to the coffee shop in the soft evening light, talking about work and weekend plans and nothing particularly important. It felt good to be out of the hotel, moving through the world like a regular person instead of a problem solver in a business suit. Can I ask you something? Lila said as they settled into a corner table with their drinks. Sure. Are you happy? I mean, really happy? Claire considered the question. A month ago, she would have answered automatically. Of course, she was happy. She had a good job and a nice apartment and a bright future ahead of her. But now, I think I'm learning what happiness actually feels like, she said finally. Instead of just staying busy enough to avoid thinking about whether I'm happy or not. That's a good answer. Lila stirred her coffee thoughtfully. What changed? Claire thought about the airplane note, about Marcus's quiet kindness, about Zoe's easy gift of the stuffed animal. I met someone who reminded me that there's a difference between having a life and living one. Thursday evening, Claire's phone rang while she was reviewing the next day's schedule. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. Hi, she answered, pleased by the warm flutter in her stomach. Hey, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Just hotel paperwork. What's up? I wanted to ask you something, but I need to be upfront about the situation. Marcus's voice carried that careful tone she'd heard before when he talked about Zoe. There's been a development with Nina. Claire's stomach dropped. Is everything okay? Sort of. She texted me earlier asking if she could take Zoe tonight unexpectedly. Said she'd explain later, but she needed to pick her up from the after-school program right away. That sounds concerning? That's what I thought. I told her okay, but only if she confirmed where they'd be and promised to have Zoe back by 9 tomorrow morning for school. And? She agreed, then went radio silent. I've called twice, texted 3 times. Nothing. Claire could hear the worry in Marcus's voice, the careful control of a parent trying not to panic. What do you need? I don't know yet. Maybe nothing. But I wanted you to know in case I have to cancel our weekend plans or leave suddenly or something. I don't want you to think I'm bailing on you. Marcus. Claire's voice was firm. Don't worry about me. Take care of what you need to take care of. Is there anything I can do to help? Just knowing you understand means a lot. Of course I understand. She's your daughter. They talked for a few more minutes, Marcus trying to convince himself that Nina probably just had a family emergency and would call soon. Claire offered to drive around to places Zoe might like, the children's museum, the skating rink, Nina's sister's apartment, but Marcus wanted to wait a little longer before escalating things. I'll call you when I hear something, he promised. I'll be up. Call me whenever, even if it's late. At 10:30, Claire's phone buzzed with a text. Still nothing. About to drive around and look for them. She grabbed her keys without thinking twice. The hotel parking garage was nearly empty, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Claire drove through the city streets toward the address Marcus had texted her, Nina's apartment building. Her hands were steady on the steering wheel, but her mind was racing. She'd only met Zoe once, but the little girl had already carved out a space in Claire's heart with her butterfly face paint and generous spirit. The thought of her being somewhere unknown, possibly scared or confused, made Claire's chest tight with worry. Marcus's truck was already parked outside Nina's building when Claire arrived. She could see him through the windshield, phone pressed to his ear, face tense with concentration. Claire knocked gently on his passenger window. He looked up, surprised, but relieved to see her. Any word? She asked when he rolled down the window. I talked to Nina's sister. She hasn't seen them. Called Nina's mom. Same thing. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. I'm probably overreacting. Nina's not irresponsible, she's just complicated sometimes. You're not overreacting. You're being a good father. Claire got into the passenger seat, noting the coffee cups in the center console. Marcus had brought two, probably hoping she'd show up. The small gesture made her heart ache with affection for this careful, thoughtful man who anticipated her presence even in the middle of his own crisis. Where else might they go? She asked. The skating rink closes at 10. The Children's Museum is only open on weekends. There's a 24-hour diner Nina used to take Zoe to when she was smaller, but it's across town. Let's check it. They drove through the quiet city streets, past late-night convenience stores and empty office buildings. Marcus called Nina's number again and got voicemail. He left a careful message. Nina, it's Marcus. I just want to confirm that Zoe is safe and that you'll have her back in time for school tomorrow. Please call me back. You're very calm, Claire observed as they stopped at a red light. On the outside. Inside, I'm imagining every possible thing that could go wrong and trying not to lose my mind. What's the worst that could reasonably happen? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Nina's been talking about wanting more time with Zoe. Not in a legal way, just she misses having her every day. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about just taking her somewhere for a few days without telling me. Would she do that? I don't think so. But a year ago, I wouldn't have thought she'd disappear for hours without calling back either. The diner was a small, bright place with vinyl booths and a counter where a lone server was refilling salt shakers. Through the window, they could see a handful of late-night customers, a couple sharing pie, a man reading a newspaper over coffee, a family with 2 young children who looked tired and cranky. No Nina and Zoe. Marcus's shoulders slumped slightly. I was really hoping. It's okay. We'll figure this out. They sat in the parking lot for a moment, both thinking. Claire watched Marcus stare at his phone, willing it to ring. Marcus, she said gently, what does your gut tell you? That Nina's not trying to hurt anyone. That she probably just got overwhelmed and needed some space, and taking Zoe felt like the easiest solution. Marcus leaned his head back against the seat. But also that she's not thinking about how this affects me or how it might confuse Zoe. So maybe she just needs a gentle reminder that other people are worried. Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe. Claire pulled out her own phone and opened a new text message. What's Nina's number? Claire, you don't need to. I'm not going to call her out or start drama. But sometimes it's easier to respond to someone neutral, someone who's not emotionally invested in the situation. Marcus gave her the number. Claire composed a careful message. Hi, Nina. This is Claire, Marcus's friend. He's been trying to reach you to confirm that Zoe is safe and will be home in time for school tomorrow. Could you please give him a quick call when you get a chance? Thanks. She showed Marcus the text before sending it. He read it twice, then nodded. That's perfect. Not accusatory, just concerned. Claire sent the message. They sat in the diner parking lot, watching the neon sign flicker against the dark sky. After 10 minutes, Marcus's phone rang. Nina. He answered immediately. Is Zoe okay? Claire could hear Nina's voice through the phone, apologetic and slightly defensive. Marcus listened, asking questions in a calm, measured tone. Where are you now? Okay, that's fine. Yes, I was worried. No, I'm not angry. I just need to know she's safe. Can you have her back by 8 tomorrow morning so I can take her to school? Thank you. Marcus hung up and let out a long breath. She's at her mother's house. Nina had a bad day at work and felt overwhelmed, so she picked up Zoe and drove there without thinking. She fell asleep on her mom's couch and didn't see my messages until just now. Is Zoe okay? She's fine. Nina said she's been playing with her grandmother's old dollhouse all evening and didn't even realize it was past her bedtime. Marcus rubbed his face with his hands. Crisis averted. Thank goodness. They drove back through the city, the tension in the truck gradually easing. Claire found herself studying Marcus's profile in the dashboard light, noticing the way his shoulders had finally relaxed, how his breathing had deepened. You handled that really well, she said. I've had practice. Co-parenting requires a lot of patience and assumption of good intentions. Even when the other person doesn't communicate well? Especially then. Zoe needs to see that her parents can work together, even when we're frustrated with each other. Claire thought about her own parents, about the cold politeness that had characterized their interactions even during their marriage. She wondered what her childhood would have been like if her parents had shown her what healthy conflict resolution looked like. You're a really good father, she said quietly. I try to be. Some days are easier than others. Marcus pulled up outside Claire's hotel. She started to get out, then hesitated. Are you okay? I mean, really okay? I'm relieved and grateful that you showed up tonight. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Zoe matters to you, which means she matters to me. Marcus turned to look at her fully. In the dim light from the hotel entrance, his expression was soft but serious. Claire? Yeah? Tonight meant a lot to me. The fact that you dropped everything to help look for my daughter, that's not a small thing. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. That's what I mean. They looked at each other in the quiet truck, something unspoken passing between them. Claire felt the weight of the moment, the sense that they were stepping across a line they couldn't uncross. I should probably go, she said finally. Probably. But neither of them moved for several seconds. Finally, Claire opened the truck door. Tell Zoe I'm glad she's safe, she said. I will. And Claire, thank you for all of it. Claire walked into the hotel lobby, feeling changed in some fundamental way. She'd spent the evening worried about a 6-year-old she barely knew, helping a man she'd met less than 2 weeks ago navigate a crisis that had nothing to do with her. And it had felt more important, more real, than any business meeting or professional achievement she could remember. In her room, Claire got ready for bed, thinking about the look on Marcus's face when he'd talked to Nina. The way he'd stayed calm and focused on solutions instead of blame. The way he'd prioritized Zoe's well-being over his own hurt feelings. The way he'd brought 2 coffee cups to the parking lot, just in case Claire showed up to help. Her phone buzzed with a text. Zoe is home safe and sound. She drew you another picture, a butterfly airplane. Says it can fly and look pretty. Seems right to me. Claire smiled as she turned off the light. Outside her window, the city hummed with its usual late-night activity. But for the first time since she'd arrived here, it felt like home. Friday morning brought clear skies and a text from Marcus that made Claire's heart skip. Coffee tomorrow? I have something I want to ask you. Good something or concerning something? She texted back. Good something. At least, I hope you'll think so. Claire spent the day distracted, wondering what Marcus wanted to discuss. Was he ready to introduce her to Zoe properly? Was he having second thoughts about their relationship? Had Thursday night changed things between them in ways she hadn't considered? Lila noticed her preoccupation during their afternoon staff meeting. You're not really here today, she observed when the meeting ended. Everything okay? Just thinking about tomorrow. Ah, ground crew guy again. His name is Marcus, and yes. When do I get to meet this mysterious man who's made you forget how to obsess over quarterly reports? Claire realized that in all her conversations about Marcus, she'd never seriously considered introducing him to her work friends. Her romantic life had always been completely separate from her professional one, a series of brief relationships with men who understood that her career came first, and who never expected to meet her colleagues or be included in her day-to-day world. But with Marcus, the boundaries felt different, more permeable. Maybe soon, she said, surprising herself. That evening, Claire found herself standing in her closet trying to choose an outfit for coffee with Marcus. Everything felt wrong. Too formal, too casual, too much like she was trying to make an impression. Finally, she settled on dark jeans and a soft, green sweater, clothes that felt comfortable and authentically her. Saturday morning found her at Maya's cafe 15 minutes early, nervous in a way that reminded her of being 16 and going on her first real date. She ordered coffee and chose the same table by the window where they'd sat before, watching the street for Marcus's familiar figure. He appeared right on time, wearing khakis and a blue button-down that brought out his eyes. When he saw her through the window, his face lit up with a smile that made Claire's stomach flutter. Hi, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Hi yourself, you look nice. Thanks, you look beautiful. They ordered breakfast and fell into easy conversation about their weeks, about the hotel's latest minor crises, about Zoe's excitement over her new after-school program. But Claire could sense something different in Marcus's energy, a nervous anticipation that matched her own. So, she said when they'd finished eating, what did you want to ask me? Marcus's hand found hers across the table. I've been thinking about what happened Thursday night, about how you showed up without me even asking, about how natural it felt to have you there with me during something that scary. It felt natural to me too. Good, because I realized something. Marcus took a breath. I'm ready for you to meet Zoe properly, as more than just a friend I ran into at the fair. Claire felt her heart speed up. Are you sure? I'm sure. The way she talked about you after the fair, the way she keeps asking if she'll see you again, I think she's ready too. What would that look like? I was thinking maybe next Saturday. Zoe and I usually go to the Aviation Museum in the morning, then have lunch at our favorite sandwich place. Nothing fancy or formal. Just us, including you in our regular routine. Claire felt tears prick at her eyes. I would love that. Yeah? Yeah. But Marcus, I want you to know, if it doesn't go well, if she's not comfortable or if it feels forced, we can go back to keeping things separate. I don't want to rush anything that might upset her. Marcus squeezed her hand. That's exactly why I know this is right. You're thinking about her first, just like I am. They walked to the park afterward, to the same overlook where they'd watched planes on their first coffee date. The morning was warm, but not humid, perfect for being outside. Can I ask you something? Claire said as they settled on their usual bench. Always. Thursday night, when you brought 2 coffee cups to the parking lot, were you hoping I'd show up? Marcus smiled sheepishly. I was hoping. I didn't want to assume, but you hoped. I hoped, and when I saw you at my window, I felt this incredible sense of relief. Not just because you were there to help, but because you were there. Period. Claire leaned against his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of his soap and something that was just uniquely him. I've been thinking too, she said. About Thursday night, about what it meant. What conclusion did you reach? That I want to be the person you call when things get complicated. I want to be part of your life in all the messy, difficult, beautiful ways. Marcus turned to look at her. Even knowing that it will always be complicated? That Zoe will always come first, and Nina will always be part of the picture, and there will be challenges I can't predict or control? Especially knowing that. I want a real life with real people and real problems. I'm tired of everything in my world being neat and managed and predictable. Careful what you wish for, Marcus said with a laugh. Life with a 6-year-old is many things, but predictable isn't one of them. I'm counting on it. They sat quietly for a while, watching planes cross the blue sky above them. Claire found herself thinking about Zoe, about what the little girl might show her at the Aviation Museum, about what it would feel like to be included in their Saturday tradition. Marcus? Thank you for letting me into this. Into your life with Zoe. I know it's not a decision you make lightly. Thank you for being the kind of person I can trust with it. A plane roared overhead, and Claire found herself wondering if Zoe was somewhere in the city at that moment, maybe at a window, waving at the aircraft like Marcus had described. Soon, she'd get to see that for herself. Soon, she'd be part of the small, beautiful world Marcus and Zoe had built together. The thought filled her with a happiness so complete it almost scared her. But as Marcus's hand found hers on the bench between them, as another plane traced its path across the clear sky, Claire allowed herself to feel it fully. This was what she'd been searching for without knowing it. Not a perfect life, but a real one. Not a grand romance, but a steady love built on small kindnesses and shared moments and the courage to show up for each other when it mattered. It was everything she'd never known she wanted, and everything she was finally brave enough to choose.